Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste to all of you once again. Start our class once again with our salutations to our Rishis, and Swamiji, and all our teachers. So, studying Tattvabodha, we are studying the topic of Jiva. The author, as I said before, has divided this text, without mentioning these words, divided the text into Jiva, Ishvara, Jiveshvara Aikyam, Jivan Mukti, and a little bit about Karma. That's the way he has, the author has divided. So we are in the Jiva topic. So specifically we are now at the question of Atma. Atma Kaha. So, Satchidananda Swarupa San, the answer was given. So, we are exploring that. Those words, 3 words that are given, Sat, Chit and Ananda. To neutralize the confusion we have about ourselves. The Shastram gives those 3 words. That is what we are exploring. So we saw that. We first saw consciousness. In every thought, in every cognition, that which obtains is consciousness. That invariable, that which is self-evident, that which is not objectifiable, and that which is not replaceable, displaceable by any thought. And even if there is no thought, that which is, that is Chit, consciousness. We saw that first. Then last class we talked about, we inquired into having understood that Atma is not the body. The body is confused, taken to be the Atma. Then we said, let's look into Atma some more And is Atma mortal? I know that the body is mortal. We don't need a lecture on that. We see it. But what about Atma? That was the question we asked last time. And that discussion quickly took us into the discussion of time. Why is that? What is the connection between mortality and time? The discussion is very much related because when we look at every object, that object is born, then that object is gone. This is the nature of every object, born and gone. If some things don't seem to go, then it is changing constantly. Constantly changing. No object that you look at today is the same object you looked at yesterday. This we must be clear about. Something about the object has changed. Wear and tear, they say. Wear and tear. So wear and tear is constant. It may not be perceptible to the human eye, but wear and tear is always there. Therefore, I can never say the tree I am looking at today is the same tree I looked at yesterday. Same object. Yeah, it's the same tree, all right. It is the same tree that's giving all these beautiful flowers. It's the same mango tree. But not the same shape, not the same form, not the same age. So many attributes about it is not the same. So the object is changing. In fact, look at this word in Sanskrit for the word world. The Sanskrit word is Jagat. Jagat, that just stands for Jayate, born. Janm hua. जो जन्म होता है, गच्छति. Gachati. Gachati in Sanskrit means goes. I have a feeling that the word go also comes from the root gam in Sanskrit, to go. I wish somebody researches on that. So go, that which is born and that which goes is called Jagat. Over. That's the definition of Jagat. Our rishis seem to be happy. That's the world for you. Anything that is born and moves or goes or changes is called Jagat. And so we have the modern mantra. Change is the only thing that is constant. I think some of you may have heard that. They try to use that to justify constantly changing things in the company. Just when you think you got settled, suddenly the company has been purchased. Merger has taken place. Merger has taken place, everything is fine. Suddenly CEO has changed. Suddenly new policy. And then they tell you, change is constant. So, okay, it's not new to us. Jagat. Dies. This word death is also there. Death is another form of change. It's apparently drastic form of change. And in Sanskrit, the word is mr. Root mr. Maranam comes from that. Mrityu comes from mr. And I have a feeling mortal also comes from the word mr, from the root. I have a feeling. Somebody has to confirm that. It's just, it can't be, the similarity can't be a coincidence. I don't think so. Mr, mortality. Martyaha. The human being is called Martyaha because one who is subject to death. Because Atma is Amritaha. Okay, so we saw this. And so because every object is subject to time, the topic of time comes the minute you talk about mortality, and so we analyze time. And we saw that by dividing time into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces, you really don't get into the present. And the present has to have no length of time. The time concept itself disappears when you talk about the present. And the present is what sustains the entire time. And that present is not bound by time. That which is not time bound is the present. And we saw that, we appreciated that present now as Sat. Introduce the word Sat. So Sat, which is the truth of time, which is not bound by time, which doesn't rise and which doesn't fall like the waves rising and falling. Such a thing doesn't arise for this now. And we said, the Shastram is saying that Chit, which is consciousness, the invariable, the self-evident, self-luminous consciousness, is nothing but this Sat. That Chit is nothing but this Sat, which is the content of now, which is now. And that Sat and that Chit is Atma. This is how we appreciated last time. The equation was introduced with a simple analysis. So then we saw that this, even though the body is mortal, my problem is that I am mortal. What bothers me is I am mortal. And so we, having analyzed I, body may be mortal, all right, but am I mortal or not? I am not a mortal. This Sat Chit is not subject to change, therefore not subject to death. This we saw. Okay. Now, one more topic we have to talk about Atma. About happiness. Atma is free from unhappiness. Because finally, the human being might say, look at this. This person now says, great, you have now proved that Atma doesn't rise, doesn't set like the sun. There is no flow and ebb like the waves. It always is the same. It is permanent, it is eternal. All this you have said. It is self-luminous. Now I have a problem. What is the problem? I am sad, I know that. And now Atma is permanent. That means what? Atma is permanent and I am sad. Now if you join these two together, what do you get? I'm going to be permanently sad. Correct? I'm going to be permanently sad. So I have unmuted a couple of you there. Just watch out. So, Jayakumar ji, I'm now, I thought I was better off. I thought I'm going to be better after studying Vedanta. And Now you are shown to me that at least heaven I will go and be happy. Okay, I will live for a few years here. I have what to do. This is my karma. The Shastram says karma. So, mera karma hai. They do this. Karma means they hit their head. I don't know. This is a very unique Indian culture. In America, they won't hit their head and all. You won't see that. This hitting the head is all unique karma. Tala ezhuthu means Bhagavan ne sir par likha hai kuch. So that is what is unfolding. Same thing. In all languages we have this. I don't know in Hindi what they say. Yeah, sir par likha hai.
Naseeb.
Huh?
Naseeb, they will say.
Naseeb. Naseeb, correct. Naseeb. So, mera naseeb hai, I am born like this, I have to suffer and I can't die also. I can't simply die also. That also is a problem. At least let me kill myself. No, that also I can't do. I rather suffer. So, this is my life and I thought, okay, heaven is there and I'm doing puja every day. I'm very devoted and so Vishnu will take me. This was my fond hope. And now you are telling me I am eternal. Oh, this can be a problem. I'm going to be eternally sad. So, this I am sad is a conclusion. We need to unravel that. Okay, you're sad, fine. But are you happy sometimes? Yes, I am happy sometimes. That is why I know that I am sad. Without knowing happiness, you can't know sadness. And this happiness, is it occasional or most of the time? No, I am sad most of the time. Occasionally I am happy. Occasionally happy. So happiness is coming and going. That is my experience. Happiness like a visitor. They come, just they leave. Like this, like the heated iron rod. The blacksmith heats the rod in order to make all these metallic objects. And the heat is there. And like the heat is there and the light is glowing, the rod is glowing. I am happy now. Happiness has come and there is a glow of happiness. And after some time, like the rod becomes cool. There is no more brightness, no more heat. I am back to my nature, my sad nature. That is how I explain myself. But I don't like being sad. I'm always seeking happiness. So what do? I have to do something to be happy. So I do something. I have to work out. Put on workout, just go do. Run. Go to the gym. Run. Push, pump. All these weights. And that is not enough. Put on this music. So do something to be happy. I have to do something. Or just go out there and dance and move and shake. So I have to do something to this body so that I can forget myself. I had heard of Western music in India. I did not know any English song until I went to the US. So then I heard of somebody called Michael Jackson and all these songs and beat it. That was everybody was playing this song, and in all these universities there is a place. There is a place called Union, where everybody hangs out. Hanging out is important. The hangout places are there. And union is basically a place where you go, there is the dining hall is there, restaurants are there. So is there any disturbance, noise?
It was a little bit of echo. Now it is not there.
Okay. So there everybody hangs out, and there is a machine. So maybe it's coming from my side, huh? So it could be okay. So I muted Ashutosh. So we'll see if that works or not. So there is a big machine, and that machine is called a jukebox. I don't know if such a box exists in India, but this jukebox is basically where you go, you put 25 cents. In those days, you have all these discs of songs, and you can choose which song you can play, and you put that, and you say, you select from this 250 songs, and you press this button, press the number 123, yes, and then this disc will come out like this. Then it will place itself on that disc player. It starts playing. So whatever song you want, it plays. Jukebox. So it's amazing. Even while studying, this is a place where people study also. And even to study, I need music. So beat it has to go. Then only this physics seems to come into my mind. So that something has to happen. Otherwise, life doesn't seem to exist. I don't seem to be alive. So this is my idea, that something has to happen in order for me to be happy. Happiness is coming from outside. And even there is a problem. Happiness comes from outside means, yeah, this song, they say it is a hit song. Hit song means what? We have to, nobody defined to me what a hit song is. We have to come up with a definition. Why it is called a hit song? It basically hit all the songs from the market. And all these songs, I am the boss. So I am the boss. So everybody listens to me. So I am the hit song. I hit everybody. But then what happened a few months later? Somebody else comes and hits me, and he becomes a hit song. So at least the song, if it is hit, and it doesn't remain a hit song. So everything that seems to give me happiness loses its charm after a while and no longer makes me happy. I need to look for something else. Law of diminishing returns is there. Law of diminutive utility, diminishing utility, whatever you want to call it. This seems to be there. So this happiness that I'm seeking from outside, also I constantly have to look for newer and newer things. Telephone is a best example. And the fellow says, I'm now tired of this cell phone. Hey, what do you mean tired of this cell phone? You have WhatsApp, does it have? Yeah, it has WhatsApp. Does it work? Yeah, it works. Then what's the problem? Telephone, does the telephone work? Yeah, the telephone also works. That's how life is revolving around telephone and WhatsApp, your life, right? So what more do you need? No, it's a bit slow. A bit slow, over, finished. So I need a new phone. So this change, I'm seeking this, I seem to be seeking something from these objects. And when the objects cease to give me that, I need something else. So this happiness, I am the sad guy. I have concluded that I'm basically sad, and happiness has to visit me. Like wearing a hat. The hat is there, I wear it, and as long as I wear it, the hat is there, and therefore likewise there is a hat of happiness on my head. This is my experience. And so, even when I smile, that smile conceals a sad person. My smile is enigmatic. I am smiling because I have to smile. Sometimes you have to smile in public, right? Because everybody is smiling, you also have to smile, even though you don't feel like smiling. So like that, I keep smiling all the time. And sad person always is there. But then I ask the person, hey, wait. Do you laugh sometimes? Despite all these actions that you do you laugh sometimes heartily? Yes, we do laugh sometimes heartily. I do. There are times when we do. And we forget ourselves during that time. Correct? We forget ourselves. At that time, all the burden of the past seems to be not there. The list of problems I have seems to have disappeared, at least for that moment. When I see a star, when I see a small baby looking at you and smiling, you say, my God, without my knowledge, that child evokes the happy me. And I hug the child, I kiss the child, and all my problems seem to have disappeared. How? How is it possible? If I am sad, and basically my nature is sadness, how can I be ever happy? Late night. Yes. In America, I was introduced to this late night show. In India also it must be there. I don't have a TV. I think I should see more TV so I can get an idea of what's going on in the modern, what do they see? I should also see sometimes. Get an idea of what's going on. I do see the TV sometimes when I go home. My father is watching the news, and so I pick up some news. I watch this Republic TV sometimes. Even though there's a lot of noise coming from Republic TV. At least this fellow is bringing out some good topics. And so that's our saving grace. So this late night TV is what? I am tired and I am exhausted, and I turn on the TV at 10 o'clock or 9:30 or 10:30. 10:30 when I'm supposed to be asleep, I turn on the TV. And then here comes David Letterman. Here comes all these new people. Those days, even before David Letterman, Johnny Carson, I think maybe he was the first guy who started the show. So 1 hour, 1.5 hours, just keep on saying some silly thing or the other and just laugh it out. Laugh it out, all silly jokes. And we are ready for it because I want to laugh and forget everything. Hey, tomorrow you've got a big thing due. Yeah, I'll handle that. Don't worry. Just give me 1 hour. Give me 1 hour. I just want to forget myself. So important. That moment of joy is amazing. And so this ability to forget oneself, such a gift it is it not? Such an important thing. In fact, I think if we did not have the ability to forget, the human race would have perished long ago. That idea of hope nothing would have been there. The ability to just smile and then forget our sorrows. Krishna does mention in the 15th chapter, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishtaha. I am there in the heart of everybody. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishtaha. Matta smriti jnanam apohananche. So this memory comes from me. Jnanam, knowledge comes from me. Apohanam, he introduces the word apohanam. Apohanam means forgetfulness. The ability to forget is also a blessing. Krishna reminds us, don't take it easily. Because of that, and that's a blessing because I am able to forget my sorrow. And so, during that period of joy, I am able to suspend my notions about myself. My notions, whatever notion I have about myself, I am limited. I am subject to sorrow. I am sorrowful. I am sick. I am subject to sickness. I am subject to death. All these things are big things, very sad things, but I am able to suspend those notions. So during that period, of course, I am not enlightened, but I am lightened. Correct? Lightened, not enlightened. Somewhat light. So a brief moment of joy is there. So very important. That is the period when the person is there. That is when I am really there. Okay. So this unhappiness, where does it come from? Am I the source of unhappiness? See, source of happiness we have seen, it cannot come from outside. No object can be the source of happiness. If we all knew that, we will all stand in line to get that. That doesn't seem to be there. Happiness is not an attribute of an object. It is not a quality of an object. The hit song seems to give me happiness. Okay, so I will take it for as long as it lasts. But after that, I need to go for something else. A particular time is not a source of happiness. A particular place perhaps is a source of happiness. Unfortunately, I've been to all these places, waterfalls and this falls and that falls. Happiness seems to come, but happiness also falls like the falls, waterfalls. What can I do? So next time I go to this Niagara Falls, okay, enjoyed it. Next what? We need to go to some cruise. So from Chennai port, at least let's go to Sri Lanka. And then from there, next year, we should plan to go to some other port. So all these ideas going around. And so particular place, particular situation. Particular situation also does not seem to be a source of happiness. What about unhappiness? Is something a source of unhappiness? I must be a source of unhappiness. Otherwise, how can I be unhappy? Is that possible? If I am the source of unhappiness, or if my nature is unhappiness, I can never be happy. I can never be happy because that's my nature. Like water, if its nature is to wet, it will always be wet. make wet. It can never be dry. Water can never be dry. My nature has to be with me. Now, if my nature is happiness, then I cannot be unhappy. That also is there. So you have two contradictions. So we need to resolve these contradictions somehow. So which one is better? My being unhappy cannot make me happy. That is one contradiction. I am happy. If I am happy, if my nature is happiness, I cannot be unhappy. But I do seem to be unhappy. That contradiction seems to be better because I know that I want to be happy. I know I cannot stand unhappiness. And we saw earlier, of course, that this sorrow comes from a false conclusion. So I can now inquire into these false conclusions that I have made and look into Atma as the source of Ananda. And if you look at this Ananda a little bit more, any experience of Ananda Rasagulla. I want this Rasagulla. Yeah, those of you who don't like sweet have to change the example a little bit. Okay, so I have to say that because later on if you come and tell me what Jayakumar ji, Rasagulla, I run away from Rasagulla. How can I eat Rasagulla? How can anybody even touch Rasagulla? Some people will say that. So then it's your responsibility. You change it with something you like. So I'm just giving an example because we all went after Rasagulla during one time. And everybody seems to like that cup when they give in the restaurant. They all keep it for the last. We keep the best for the last, it seems. Everybody. I don't want to exhaust it now. Just save it for the last. So that last moment, I'm keeping it. The wanting person is there. The wanted object is there. There is a subject-object dichotomy. Correct? I want. And then I consume that. I consume Rasagulla and then I am filled with joy. The whole world disappears. All my sorrows disappear. What happens? The subject and the object apparently fuse into one. There is no longer a division called subject and object. There is no longer the division wanting person, wanted object. Correct? No longer a division. Previously the division was strong. I want it. The division was very clear. Crystal clear. Now the dichotomy disappears completely. Completely. There is no longer a division at all. The subject and object are fused into one. There is nothing there that evokes the wanting me, that evokes the dissatisfied me. There is nothing to evoke the disturbed me, the turbulent me. It disappears. The subject-object division disappears completely. This is one way to appreciate this experiential happiness. Keep in mind, this is experiential happiness. This is the only happiness we know. This is called sukha. Sukha or dukh. It is there. Ananda. Word sukha is better because the sukha refers to experiential happiness. The happiness that comes to me that I don't seem to have. The Shastram says this experiential happiness is an important thing through which I can appreciate my nature as Ananda. The source of happiness is not outside. Okay, then where is it coming from? It must be inside. Inside means what? I look at my body. It has so many parts inside. Which part of the body is a source of happiness? Nobody says. We have a lunchtime conversation. I love my liver so much. Do you love your liver? What a beautiful organ it is. It purifies. Hey, what about kidney? He says. I love my kidneys. We all should love kidneys because, without kidney, we would all be dead long ago. It purifies. Can you believe that? Constantly purifying, removing the toxins. How does it know what these toxins are? How does it know all this? Even I don't know what toxins are. The kidney seems to know it. I love my kidney. Nobody seems to have this kind of discussion. This happens only when there is a kidney stone. Only then the topic of kidney arises. Until then, who cares about these kidneys? Whether I have one kidney or two kidneys or three kidneys, we don't know also. And kidney is a source of kidney stone. 2 weeks ago, the doctor reminded me about gallbladder. And my father was pointing. He asked my father, where is the pain coming from? And my father pointed it to the bottom right of the stomach. And he said, Jayakumar, this is a classic symptom of gallstone. Then I had to remind myself, what is this gallstone? Gall means what? Then gallbladder. What is this gallbladder? We don't talk about gallbladder in our daily life. And gallstone, a stone goes there. Why is all the stones? They like to sit in all these little appendix and all these small things, I suppose. So these internal organs, everything seems to be a source of problem. Heart, of course, we don't have to talk about heart. Heart is there. Heart palpitations are there. My friend had a problem when we were young. I heard about it. Skipping. I think it skips a beat or something. So that's also a problem. So nothing inside seems to be a source of happiness. It's all a source of problem only. So parts of the body cannot be source of the problem. Mind, of course, is always a source of problems. So Atma, perhaps I have not understood this Atma, and that Atma can be the source of Ananda. Just some implication. If it can't come from outside, then it has to be inside only. That inside has to be investigated. This trip to heaven also comes from this only. Because we have concluded that happiness is not there outside in this world. And it has to be in some other world. They're also wrong thinking. Because if I truly analyze that happiness cannot be outside, then I will ask the question, how do you know that happiness is there in heaven? That question has to be asked. An intelligent person could ask that question. So we can't. That's an important question. Nothing wrong in believing heaven, mind you. Because we can't disprove all these things. We are not interested in disproving also. But our question is heaven nitya or anitya? That is the question. Hey, is it a source of ananda or not? You tell me that. That we can analyze. So now, having understood that the source of happiness is not out there, what about unhappiness? Is it my nature? Now, if my nature is unhappiness, we can make some very simple conclusions. The nature of sugar is being sweet. The nature of water is to be wet, is to flow. Water doesn't complain about flowing. The nature of the tree is to grow, give flowers and fruits. My nature is unhappiness, if I say. Can I complain about that? Can that be a matter of complaint? If that is my nature, if that is my quality? It doesn't appear to be so. If that is my nature, if that is natural to me, let's put it differently. If that is natural to me, then I can never say I am unhappy about being unhappy. I must say I am happy being unhappy. How do we even say that? What kind of language we will use? How will I say that? I am happy being unhappy. That also seems contradictory. So I can't complain about being unhappy if unhappiness is my nature. But I always want to get rid of the unhappiness, the sorrow. And also, I don't, after I become happy, I don't seem to be tired of being happy also. Correct? Nobody says, oh my God, my life is great. My children are doing great. My parents are doing great. I wish I become sick today. Now, what kind of dialogue is that? We don't hear this kind of dialogue. Or nobody says, hey, you're always happy. Don't you wish you want some variety, don't you? They say variety is the spice of life. So somebody says variety is the spice of life. Then I ask him, hey, wait a minute. Then why don't you slap yourself a couple of times? Yeah, slap. Variety chahiye na. Why don't you take a fork and then poke yourself? Why don't you take a safety pin and then just poke yourself on the cheek? Variety. What? No. In the matter of happiness, I don't want variety. Nobody wants variety. Leave me alone. I am happy. Let nothing change. I want things to be exactly as they are. Correct? That is my nature. Therefore, unhappiness is alien to me. When we say alien, we don't mean unfamiliar. Unhappiness is very familiar to me. Very familiar. But when we say alien, we mean sorrow is against my nature. Against my nature. Okay? That is what we mean by that. Like what? Like a particle of dust falls in my eye. Can't stand that. How much time we spend removing this, even the hair from the, what do you call this? Eyelash, yeah. The hair from the eyelash also goes inside sometimes, and even though some people spend so much time on looking at the eyelashes, and it's absolutely amazing what all we do to them. How much time we spend on this small little part of the body, and combing the eyelash and making it longer and coloring it. And this is mind-boggling to me, how we can get caught up like this. So until then, I didn't even know that we had eyelashes, and eyelashes is there, eyelashes there, right? Let it be there. But trying to make it beautiful and look in a particular way, and oh my God, I saw all these advertisements on TV, and it's mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling. So how much time we spend removing that little hair from the eyes, because that is against my nature. Can't stand it. Same thing. Let's say some little insect enters your ear. I don't know how many of you had this experience. So I had this experience. When I was in 8th or 9th grade or something, we used to sleep on the terrace in summertime. We had a terrace. So sleep on the terrace. And one day, I woke up and I hear all these noises. And you look around, there is really no noise out there, but the noise is coming from the ear. And this is not ordinary noise. And gudu, and then suddenly it stops. And all these noises come. And it took a while to realize, this is a new experience. Took a while to realize, oh, maybe there is something in my ear. Now tell me, can I keep quiet with this kind of a problem? No. And I told my mother, this is what is happening. What's going on? So it's very disturbing. And disturbing also is not a word. And you thought it will go away. And I wait for some time, it doesn't go away, it only gets worse. And then she had a solution for it. It's amazing how mothers have solutions. And so she pours one drop or 2 drops of oil. Some coconut oil, any oil is okay in this case. And she pours it. Suddenly all noise disappeared. And then after some time, you do like this. And then she showed me what is there inside. And you see this thing? This is just an ant. You know, the small black ant. That's all. Harmless black ant. And this guy can make so much noise. And that shows even the small ant can do so much. Right next to the eardrum and sound getting amplified. So just like that, I cannot stand what is unnatural to me. Grief, unnatural to me. That is why they will say, when there is grief, when there is trauma, you must grieve. The only way to get rid of grief is to grieve. Correct? Any psychologist will say that. Trauma cannot be removed otherwise. Crying it out. Crying it out. It's amazing. In our culture, when there is a death in the family, they will say 10 days or 13 days there is ashocha. Ashocha means what? Impurity. Impurity? What impurity? Amazing culture when you think about it. They have to process their grief, and you give them the time to process the grief. The grief, the grieving process can be interfered by other things, and that interference may not be allowed. So let them be by themselves. This is amazing, absolutely amazing. It's called Thitu and all. We have different words in our culture. And that period, there are a lot of rituals happening. Very important rituals happen. But during that period, the family is there together. Yeah, everybody else consoles the family. That is important, no doubt. Very important. But the family is also grieving. The loss of a very dear person, of cry it out, crying. It's called catharsis. In English, there is a beautiful word called catharsis. So in that grieving process, the grief goes out. And just after 2 weeks, life becomes apparently normal. Of course, life is never normal when a loved one departs. But to a large extent, the grief seems to have disappeared. So important, grief, not natural to me, it has to be let go. It has to be let go. It wants to go out. I must allow it to let go. Imagine, beautiful, lot of psychology in this. In this case, I must allow it to happen. Now, sometimes, I don't know if my conclusion is right or not. Sometimes I think women are more emotionally stable, mature than men. Just my own thinking. Just because they have the ability to let go, cry it out. And men, there is something about men, I don't know where it comes from. You can't cry. Crying means sense of vulnerability, weakness. This guy is weak. That's a wrong idea. I don't like that. I don't like that concept. It's not good. Grieving, very important. Very, very important. So we are not saying don't be unhappy. Please remember this. In this analysis, we are not saying don't be unhappy. Don't be sad. That's a wrong statement. We're not saying that. That's a wrong advice. Somebody says don't be sad. Okay, one can be consoled by saying don't be sad. Things will get better. That is okay. But practically, if you look at it, don't be sad is a wrong advice. Why it's a wrong advice? See, suppose I tell you, please leave the shoes outside. Please leave your chappals outside. Please don't bring it in. Suppose I say that. Then you can honor that request. You can say, okay, I will leave it there. And I can come inside. Leave the shoes outside the hall, outside the temple. Leave the shoes outside. In Tamil Nadu especially is very common. Many stores you have to leave the chappal outside and go inside. Correct? Very beautiful. You go to a cloth store and you feel like going inside. You feel like a home. Oh, this sounds like a home. Right from the first step, you get that feeling. So that advice can be given because I can follow that advice. Cut out the salt a little bit, reduce the salt intake, doctor says. So that advice can be followed. Maybe difficult to follow, but can be followed, followable. Put on your jacket. It's cold outside. Can be followed. But don't be sad if somebody says, you just think about it. Hey, wait a minute. Did I want to be sad? Is sadness like a jacket I'm wearing? By mistake, I wore the jacket. I wore the jacket of sadness. Why are you telling me don't be sad? Do I want to be sad? I don't want to be sad. Despite by not wanting to be sad, I am sad. Therefore, don't be sad is not the right advice. The better thing to say is, hey, this is temporary. Or this loss, things, whenever we do this, what do they say? Milk will get spilled. When there is milk, it will get spilled. So don't cry over spilled milk. We will get another glass of milk, don't worry. Like that you say, and then that can reduce the sorrow. So just a sidebar, just a footnote that we are not saying don't be happy. All these funny ideas we don't give. Being unhappy happens. We are trying to understand the nature of Atma. So, what we studied today, unhappiness is against my nature. Unhappiness is against my nature. Through analyzing our experience, we can see that. And that Atma is free from unhappiness. We need to see a little bit more. Next class. So we'll pause with that. Om Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahisha Go Brahmanebhyah Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om